Relative clauses in German language. So how do they work? Let's give a couple of examples. Let's say, for example, we have a picture of a student and we will give a very simple sentence. Hier ist ein Student. So here is a student. Okay. And another piece of information is that this student, he works in bookstore. Der Student arbeitet im Buchladen. So look, we have two different sentences, but actually they tell us about the same student. In first sentence, we mention a student, and in the second sentence, we mention the same student. Okay, how can we combine these two sentences, and how can we use the second sentence practically as a description of a student whom we mentioned in the first sentence? Look, we will rewrite the first sentence, but we will put comma. So that means our sentence is not finished. Now we have to add additional information and we will describe the student. Still, the first part of our sentence now is considered to be the main clause. Why it's the main clause? Because we can use it separately. We can put period at the end and then we can use it as a separate sentence. Okay, so main clause. Next, we have to create our description, our relative clause. How we do it? Because we talk about the same students, we will use student again, so der Student. But what we are going to do, we will drop student because we use it already in previous sentence, but we will keep the definite article. In our first sentence or second sentence, der Student arbeitet im Buchladen, article der is just an article. It's not a word. It has no meaning. It's just an indicator for a noun. It's an indicator that this is a masculine noun and it is used in the singular form. But in our relative clause, this will be not an article anymore, but a word. It will have specific meaning. We can translate it in English as who. So the student, here is a student who works in the bookstore. So der is now our word and we call it a relative pronoun. Relative pronoun, very often, almost always, except genitive and dative plural, looks like a definite article, but it is not because it will not be used with a noun. It's used without a noun. So we use this relative pronoun. And now, because we put comma and we give this description will be considered as the dependent clause. We must show this dependency from the main clause. And how do we indicate it in German language? We put the verb of our relative clause to the very end of this clause, of this sentence. So that means for us, first we will use the place, bookstore, and then we will finish our relative clause with the verb. So this now is our complete sentence. Hier ist ein Student, der im Buchladen arbeitet. And as you see, arbeitet is used at the end. And this is an indicator, including the relative clause and comma, that we have a dependent clause, and we call this a relative clause. Okay? So once again, there are four elements which we always can find in our long sentence when we analyze a relative clause. What kind of elements those are? Comma. Always at least one comma must be. Our relative pronoun, that means an article, which is not article anymore, but a relative pronoun. Then we know that a verb, or sometimes many verbs, will be used at the very end of this relative clause. And there is one more element which is very important for us, our reference. We call it antecedent. So practically the noun we describe by using this relative clause. So in this sentence, we describe a student. Here is a student who works at a bookstore. So we use the word Student. So student is our reference, is our antecedent. Four elements for a relative clause. Please keep them in mind. Let's analyze another situation. Take a look at this picture. So what do you see at this picture? So my monitor, this is actually my desk. So I'm sitting right now in front of this monitor, and whom do you see else there? There is a cat. This is my cat. He always likes to sit behind the monitor, enjoy the sun when the sun is there. And I really love my cat. So I will give you two sentences about this cat. The first sentence says, Die Katze heißt Rocky. So Rocky is his name. So the cat's name is Rocky. And I give you the second sentence, I love the cat. Okay, now take a look at these two sentences and you see that in both sentences we talk about a cat, die Katze. Now I would like to use my second sentence as a relative clause. I would like to insert it in the first sentence. I would like to say that the cat that I like, who I like, his name is Rocky. How can I do it? First of all, of course, I will give space for my relative clause, and then I will put comma. So you remember, comma is important. Next, I'm supposed to use cat again. But you remember the rule. I will drop the cat, and I will use only definite article. After that, I will put another element of my second sentence, but I remember that last element of my relative clause must be the verb. So I use my verb at the end, which is still conjugated with subject, ich. Ich liebe. Ending a is an indicator that we use subject in first person singular form. And then I finish my sentence by putting the second comma after the relative clause. Now look, we have the complete sentence. Die Katze, die ich liebe, heißt Rocky. The cat that I love, his name is Rocky. And as you see, it is possible that our relative clause can be inserted, integrated in the middle of the main clause. We start our compound sentence with main clause and we finish it with the main clause. Our relative clause is now in the middle, separated by two commas. And again, we have four elements I talked to you about: comma, relative pronoun, verb at the end of a relative clause, and of course our antecedent, Katze. Let's analyze another example. I give you two sentences. Peter's friend's name is Max. So Peter playing with Max soccer, football. And then the second sentence, Peter plays with his friend football, soccer. So look, we analyze these sentences and we know that we talk about friend. Now, friend is used in first sentence and second sentence. And again, I would like to use the second sentence as description of the friend. How can I do it? Before I do it, I analyze again the second sentence and I realized that in my second sentence, we use friend with preposition mit, which means with. Peter plays with a friend soccer. Okay, so that means I have to keep this preposition with my article when I describe the friend because it's a logic of the second sentence. So again, I give the place for my relative sentence, then I put comma, and then I will use my now relative pronoun not separately but together with the preposition mit dem, with whom. And after that, I will use another element of my sentence, my subject and my direct object, and I have to finish my relative clause by using the verb at the end. And I put the second comma, and now we have our nice sentence which says Peter friends with whom Peter plays soccer. His name is Max. So as you see, our relative clause may not only be integrated in the main clause, but it may be used with a preposition. So it means the relative pronoun may be used with the preposition, yeah, but we still have our four indicators for a relative clause. We have comma, we have a relative pronoun, we have a verb at the end of our sentence. Keep in mind, sometimes we may use many verbs. All of them will be used at the end of the sentence. And we have our antecedent. So the friend, noun, we describe by using our relative clause.